What's up, guys? Welcome to G Whiskey. My name is Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and once in a while I'll throw in a list as well. Today we're doing a list. I'm going to go over 5 whiskeys that I wish we had more of. Stick around. So 5 whiskeys that I want more of. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to be looking at a bunch of distilleries that I think make excellent whiskey, that do put out good whiskey, but don't have enough variety in their line. Maybe their line is very limited. I want a bigger core range from them. These are all going to be established brands, meaning I didn't include any new or newish distilleries, which might have limitations in terms of what they can put out. These are brands that have been around for a while and conceivably would be able to give us more variety in their lineup. One thing to note is that I'm not going to be covering brands that are hard to find. For example, if you look at Springbank, their whiskey is pretty hard to find, but they do have a full range. Can we find it? Can we afford it? That's another story, but the whiskeys are there. So, put simply, these are good whiskeys with maybe one or maybe a handful of releases that we don't get a lot of variety from, that I just wish put out more stuff, more products, more things for us to enjoy. I think we all understand the premise there. Of course, let's keep in mind, this is all going to be my opinion. And of course, I want to hear from you guys as well. So if you think I left anything off of the list, if there's anything you'd like to add or include, feel free to let me know down below in the comments. And finally, I've got a mystery pour in my glass here. It's a beautiful whiskey. It's from a fantastic brand, and I wish we saw more product come out from these guys. So make sure you stick around after the list. I'll let you know what that is. And I guess that's it. Let's not waste time. Let's jump into the list. And in the meantime, if you could kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So I do have a couple of honorable mentions before we kick things off, and we're going to begin with Scapa. Now, Scapa is one of 2 distilleries on Orkney Islands in the Northern Highlands, and the other one is, of course, Highland Park. These guys used to put out a pretty decent 16-year-old, although it did have a lower ABV. I think that one was 40%, but it was solid stuff. Right now, we've only got a couple of no age stated 40% whiskeys that are honestly kind of underwhelming. That's the only thing they've got out at the moment, and yeah, they're definitely not living up to their full potential, and I wish they were giving us more. Next up, we've got Dalhuane, which is not a whiskey we see too much product from. They have their 16-year-old Flora and Fauna release out there, and that's about it. Now, if you step over to the IB or independent bottle scene, they do have plenty of stuff available, and they're often very good. They are an interesting whiskey. They have a unique character, and once again, I wish they put out more product. So that's it for our honorable mentions. Let's hop into the list. So my number 5 pick is another whiskey that's pretty easy to find on the independent bottle scene, but if you're looking for original bottlings or OBs from them, there's not much. In fact, there's only one standard release, and then you'll have a few like odds and ends special releases, but they make good whiskey. It's malty, it's full, it's interesting. I'm talking about Glen Elgin. I think the Glen Elgin 12 is really good. It's an underrated gem. Check it out if you haven't. Now, it is a Diageo product. It does come in at 43%, but it's really solid stuff. And it would be a great kickoff point to an entire range of age-stated Glen Elgin whiskeys. I don't know if that's in the cards for us someday, but I would love to see it happen. So number 5 is Glen Elgin. My number 4 pick is another whiskey that only has one standard original bottling out there, although they are readily available on the independent bottle scene. It's a great whiskey. I think there's loads of potential there. What I want more from is Benryn. Their 15-year-old Flora and Fauna release is actually my favorite from the Flora and Fauna line. It's rich, it's meaty, it's savory. It's a really interesting whiskey. It's one to check out if you haven't. And once again, plenty of IBs out there as well to choose from, but it's a terribly underused single malt, and I think they could probably give us a really interesting core range. So my number 4 is Benryn. My number 3 is yet another Diageo brand. Now, Diageo, love them or hate them, they do have some fantastic distilleries at their disposal. They often underutilize them. When they do utilize them, their whiskeys are often poorly presented, but that's not the subject of today's video. So I'm not going to go off on a rant, but the reason they keep on popping up on this list is because they have so many great distilleries that they really should do more with, and one of those is Craigenmore. The Craigenmore 12 is sadly 40%, it's colored, it's chill filtered, the trifecta, the Diageo special, but it's legitimately good distillate, it's good whiskey, and sadly that's all we really see from Craigenmore. No, that's not true. I guess we do have the port finish DE as well. But I mean, how cool would it be to have like a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old release from them? Ideally, it would be naturally presented and affordable. Now, I'm not going to hold my breath for any of that. Probably never going to happen, but it would be nice. Be really nice. Number 3 is Craigenmore. Okay, so my number 2 is yet another Diageo. It's the last one on the list, I promise. And I'm sure there's already going to be a bunch of people down below in the comments bashing and hating on Diageo, and honestly, that's fair. Listen, I don't like the way they present their whiskeys either. But let's keep in mind that this list is wishful thinking. We're talking about what could be or what should be. It's not me condoning the current state of affairs at Diageo. Not at all. So yeah, that's my little disclaimer. My number 2 pick on the list is Clynelish. Clynelish is not something we have much from. We basically have their standard 14-year-old, and that's about it. Now, they do have their special releases, they do have their odds and ends. They also have some IBs out there, although they're very rare and very expensive. Now, Diageo has recently put out their lineup for their 2022 special releases. I think they're now available. And one of them is a Clynelish. It's a 12-year-old cask strength Clynelish, which is one I would be very interested in trying. But might not. So yeah, we got Diageo being Diageo, but keep in mind, this is all like fantasy. This is my dream world. In my dream world, I'd love to try some older Clynelish, and I'd love for it to be affordable. Once again, that's not something we're going to hold our breaths for. It's never going to happen, but there is loads of untapped potential from that distillery, and it's a little bit of a tragedy. So number 2 is Clynelish. So for my number 1 pick, we're finally moving away from Diageo. I've got a Pernod Ricard brand here. This is a brand that used to be a lot more like present on the scene when it comes to OBs. Right now, they don't have much out. I think they have maybe like 2 or 3 releases, but they definitely fall on the more premium side of things. Their cheapest and most accessible whiskey is an 18-year-old. I'm talking about Longmorn. The Longmorn 18 is really delicious stuff. I haven't tried any of the older ones because they're sadly not within my budget, but I'd love to. I'm not going to spend that money. But yeah, I'd love to see them do some younger whiskeys, maybe a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old. I'm sure a lot of you out there remember the old Longmorn lineups. At one point, we had a 15-year-old, which was delicious. They followed that up with a 16-year-old, which was also delicious. And they followed both of those up with a no age stated 40% whiskey, which was, it was whiskey. Now, Longmorn has a wonderful and delicate, complex house style. I always get these interesting lemongrass notes in there. It's really good whiskey, and credit where it's due. Like, the whiskeys they currently have out are at least 48% ABV and naturally presented, but they're too premium, they're too expensive. The only one that's within my budget, at least, is that 18-year-old, and it's a fantastic 18-year-old. I would recommend it, although, generally speaking, 18-year-olds these days are a pretty pricey proposition, so your call there, of course. But no, it's good stuff. And the reason I put these guys at number 1 isn't just because I love the whiskey, although that's the main reason. I also think that unlike a lot of the Diageo stuff I mentioned, it is feasible that someday we do get some younger, more affordable options from this brand. It's something I'd love to see happen. So yeah, there we go. Number 1, Longmorn. Okay, so that's it. That is the list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let's keep in mind it is all opinion and that we can add to this list. So I want to know what you guys think. Who out there is making really good whiskey that just doesn't have enough releases on the go at the moment? Who do you want to see more from? Put your thoughts down below. Now, I know some of you stuck around to find out what my mystery pour over here is. Here I've got a beautiful single malt whiskey that comes from Islay. They do have a handful of releases out there, but this is their only regular standard offering that's available. I've got the Bruichladdich Classic Laddie. Now, once again, I do know that they have other releases out there, and a lot of those are sort of like special releases or vintages, and let me be clear, I do not want them to do away with their other whiskeys. I love what they're doing currently. I just want more from them. This is just me being greedy. Now, they did used to have the Laddie 10, and they swapped that one out for the Classic Laddie. This one's no age stated. Still fantastic, by the way. But I'd love to see maybe the 10 maker come back, maybe a 12, maybe a 15. They have put out stuff like a 16 and a 22-year-old in the past, but those were kind of premium, and there were limited releases. But Yeah, more core range, please. I love these guys. Berklady, man. They're making really good stuff. It's not always about Port Charlotte. What else? Okay, one last thing before I go. Quick plug. Let's talk about the OSWAs, or the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. Voting is now live, and it is your chance to have your say in what you think the best whiskeys of 2022 were. The nominated whiskeys and whiskey brands are selected by a group of independent voices from the whiskey world, including yours truly, and then it goes out to a public vote where anyone can pick who they think deserves to win. So I would encourage all of you to go and vote. I think it takes like 5 minutes, super easy. What I'll do, I'll make sure to include the link down in the description below. And I guess that's it for today, guys, but tell you what, before I sign out, I just want to give a quick thank you to everyone out there who's been supporting the channel, who's been watching the channel, whether you're helping through things like Patreon or smaller gestures of just leaving likes, leaving comments. You know, I love reading your comments. I love hearing from you guys. I do try to answer as many as I can. And just, yeah, that's it. A genuine thank you. We'll see you next time.